theory.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson, the personal finance show focused on moving you forward financially. On today's show, spring is finally in the air. Monday, March the 20th, marked the official start of spring, which many people associate with making a fresh start. And it's the time of year when many people get organized and give everything that once over. We declutter, we clean, we organize our house and our yard and our garage. But why should we stop there? Spring can also be the time of year to give our finances a once-over. So why not add spring cleaning your finances to your to-do list? And my guest today is an expert on how you can do just that. She is a CPA, MBA, empowerment speaker, visionary accountant, and business coach. She is a sought-after media guest when it comes to financial matters and has recently been featured in Fortune, Forbes, Yahoo Finance, HuffPost, and many more. She is a financial blogger and host to her popular podcast, Talk to Tatiana, and author of the book, Dream Bold, Start Smart, which gives all mostpreneurs the skills, tools, and confidence to successfully pursue their dreams of starting a business. Tatiana Tsoir, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we get into our topic today, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about how you got started in the world of finance?
Well, you know what? Since I was 14, I found out what the word lawyer attorney meant. And so I kind of wanted to be a lawyer for a long time. You know, when I came to the US at the age of 19, I came for the summer and the circumstances kind of worked out that I ended up staying. And I went, you know, in Belarus, where I'm from, law degree is a 5-year degree right out of high school. And so I did 2 years of that. And then I came to the US for the summer, stayed here. And then in the US, it's a bachelor's degree that you need first before you can go to law school. So I still didn't abandon my dream there. I went into to get my bachelor's degree, but I needed to pick a major. And even though law schools frowned upon accounting as a major, I felt it was the right choice for me because it's a skill. It's a skill that I could support myself with. I didn't have anybody to support me. I was also starting to work as a bookkeeper part-time. And so it kind of all made sense for me. And, you know, I was lucky because in college, our accounting professors kind of brainwashed us a little bit. And they said, you know, you have to, if you are already majoring in accounting, why not sit for the CPA exam? And I thought, why not? And so because I was learning theory during in the evening, because I went for evening classes and applied them at work next day, for me, it was an instant connection between theory and practice. And also I got to work with several small businesses at a time, and I saw how decisions are being made. And I was, you know, I've been privy to the most intimate part of it, which is finances. And so I could see how different leaders make decisions, what the consequences of those decisions are. And somewhere along the way, I kind of fell in love with accounting. I fell in love with small business and almost gave up on my dream of going to law school.
So you came about it in a little bit of a roundabout way, but you got there and you've made an amazing career out of it. So that's great. Well, we've got lots to talk about, and our viewers are going to be eager to hear about your advice. Before we sort of jump into it, I wanted to give us a little bit of statistics just to give an example as to why now is definitely the time to spring clean your finances. So Canada has experienced an economic downturn in these last few years, especially here in Ontario. High inflation, rising interest rates have left many families struggling. And we've just seen the recent Consumer Trends report from Equifax Canada that says credit card balances are currently at a record high at more than $100 billion owing for the first time ever. Consumer debt is topping over $3 trillion, and non-mortgage debt is definitely on the rise. The average person is currently carrying approximately $21,000 of non-mortgage debt. And the delinquencies are even increasing. Across Canada, they've been up about 17%. And in Ontario, they've been up even more by about 23%. So these statistics are really telling us that people are taking on more debt in order to make ends meet and really turning to credit to keep up with costs. And it's really just a matter of time before they're going to reach that financial tipping point. And that's really what I see on a daily basis in my line of work. And really, according to the last statistics from the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, insolvency filings are up for the last 12-month period ending in January of 2023. Filings have risen more than 14% in total, and particularly consumer proposals have risen a little over 24%. So we can definitely see why right now we want to make our finances part of our spring cleaning routine. So Tatiana, where do people start when reviewing their finances for that spring clean?
I think a good starting point is to go back and review everything that you're paying for monthly. It doesn't mean, and a lot of folks kind of end up questioning their spend on some of the critical things, right? We're not talking about rent or food, but sometimes we are forced, and people are forced to look at how much they spend on food or how much they spend on maybe going out to eat, maybe utilities. In the US, it's fairly common to keep the house kind of cold, which is not my thing, but kind of cold to save money, which makes sense because maybe you put on a jacket and save a couple of $100 on oil or whatever it is, that the heat is provided with. And so it's really good to create an assessment of where you are today and really understand what is it that you're not using. People say when you have clothing or a thing that you look at it, it's a Japanese kind of approach, I guess. You look at it, if it doesn't bring you joy, if you haven't worn it in 5 years, you give it away, or maybe you sell it. Same thing with these subscriptions and different things that you are paying for. Maybe you don't need that gold package for cable. Maybe you can watch some stuff on YouTube or just not watch anything at all and read a book, things like that. So that's a really good point. And, there's even a strategy that you would cancel your cards once a year, and then people, like the subscriptions you have, would reach out to you for an updated card, and then you can make a decision as to whether you really are using it. And you'll be surprised how much you're paying for, really. I mean, I've been paying for so many domains just because at some points, different points of my business, I would think, oh, this is a great idea. And then I would be paying. And once I sat down and I've canceled all of those GoDaddy charges, whatever the domain handler company you use, it totaled up to about $3,600 a year. That's $300 a month. That's pretty significant chunk of change.
Absolutely. And so really it comes down to having that budget in place, I think, is really the starting point. And like you say, really analyzing those expenses every month allows you to see where you can make those adjustments for those things that maybe are not a necessity right now, or you don't use them as much as you thought you would, and things like that. What about things like setting some financial goals? We're going to talk about this a little bit in our second segment, but should we be thinking right now about those goals?
I think it's a good idea to have a plan. Now, what I found is that it's harder for individuals. It's easier for businesses, but harder for individuals to keep a budget. For some reason, it stresses them out, right? And so what I suggest is make it simple. Go with how much is coming in, how much is going out, and then reassess and see what you don't need right now, potentially. And then also having a goal is important. I can't tell you how many times I've onboarded a new client and we would have an onboarding meeting where we would discuss their goals, and I would ask them when they plan to retire, what do they plan to do, how much money they need. And they tell me that nobody has ever asked them that. I've had clients cry on a call because of that, because they realize they're a little bit over 40, there's about 20 years left. And if they want to retire comfortably, they need to be maximizing their contributions like yesterday, every year, contribute the maximum. And the question then becomes, can you actually do that out of your business or your job or whatever it is?
I think a lot of this analysis of our cash flow or our budget on a yearly basis, it really it's eye-opening, that's for sure. I think we should also be taking into consideration, are we managing the debt that we have as well? Are we keeping up with those bills and things like that? Now, there was one interesting note that I saw where you had mentioned perhaps looking at our bank accounts that we have. Is there a way of maximizing those types of accounts in this spring cleaning exercise?
So I'm a big fan of awareness, self-awareness, to be specific, and especially a part of self-awareness is also being aware of how much you have and what's the I call it a balance sheet, right? A balance sheet is a statement of financial position at a point in time. So as of today, what have you got? What are the debts? What are the cash? And kind of what's coming up in the next few months? Just, maybe 3 months from now, next month, the month after, and then the third month from now. And that's just a really good routine. And some of my best clients that I coach as part of the accounting service that we provide, they know as soon as their cash dips, they know I have to go back and watch my bank account, look at my reports every week. And sometimes they don't know what they're looking at, but that's okay. That's the idea. You look at it often. I look at my credit cards every month. I want to make sure, first of all, that I know what's being spent, what's going on. And that's really powerful. My clients know. One of my clients just recently had a cash dip and he was like, yep, I know, going back to looking at reports, going back to looking at bank accounts. And so maximizing those and really saving as much as you can to provide you the foundation, to provide you really something to fall back on is really critical at this time.
And can you talk a little bit about our needs versus our wants and how our viewers can maybe better manage those choices?
I think we all are prone to the shiny object syndrome. And so that's really when wants come in. And the reality is sometimes we mistake the need for a want, right? Sometimes, I want a new car, I need a new car. But the reality is maybe it's cheaper to fix the one you have. Or maybe this can wait. And sometimes that dopamine, which we get, which is really the culprit behind it, can really screw you up and screw up your financial stability if you don't control it, if you're not aware of it. And so keeping kind of in mind, what is the most critical things, which is to eat, to have a shelter, to live somewhere, pay for the phone. That's a necessity at this point. And get to work. Everything else, you have to be able to say, okay, do I really need this? Can I actually cut back on it? Having a Starbucks every day is not a requirement. And so kind of cutting on those little things can make a huge difference.
It definitely takes some self-discipline in making those decisions. Absolutely. Well, we've talked a lot about some benefits of spring cleaning our finances, and we're going to have more advice for you when we come back, when Money Matters returns.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
It was John's graduation. We were so proud. We all got together for a picnic. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and we listened. It helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of John, because now he has a real future to look forward to.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson. My guest today is Tatiana Tsoir. CPA, MBA, professional speaker, finance blogger, host to her popular podcast, Talk to Tatiana, and author of the book, Dream Bold, Start Smart. And today she's sharing advice on how you can spring clean your finances. And it is finally springtime, and it's that time of renewal and making a fresh start, and a time of year that you want to maybe clean around your house, get some things organized. So why not do the same when it comes to your finances? Now, before the break, we had some great advice for our viewers, and I know, Tatiana, you're going to have some more, so we're going to keep going. And so cleaning your finances should really also include checking your credit report. How can someone do this, and what should they be looking for?
I think a good idea to look at what accounts you have outstanding. What is your borrowing capacity? How many cards you've got? What are those balances? In the US, typically, you're not advised to max out your balances because that reduces your credit score. And so typically what I look for is, do I recognize all of these accounts? I look for, am I on time with all the payments? Because taking care of your credit is really important, especially in times like these when you have a lot of borrowing increasing really more than anything else. And really, what I look for is those things, but the ability to also borrow if needed. That's really important, especially if you're investing in something new, if you are maybe starting a business, you have to understand what capacity you've got, and also keeping your credit score up will always work for you. And caring about it, I think, and being aware of it is really critical, especially in times like these.
Absolutely. And what if you see some errors on your credit report? What should somebody do?
I would reach out immediately and don't let it go until it's resolved. We've had situations where people that I know personally had somebody open an account, and then a collection agency calls them, maybe, I think it was a T-Mobile, some phone company account. And so they would call up and say, why are you not paying us? And this person would say, I had no idea that I had this account because somebody else opened it. And so this is something that can really tarnish your credit score, and you could probably take sometimes years to recover from it. So really keeping a tight grip on it is really important, and get it resolved, get it corrected as soon as you notice something wrong.
Absolutely. I do see a lot of people in my line of work where there have been issues with their credit report, and getting those errors fixed is absolutely really important. Now, of course, here in Canada, we have two credit bureaus. We have Equifax Canada and TransUnion. And it is possible, thankfully, to run a credit check on ourselves more than once a year. It's a free report that you can get, and it will be mailed to you. You can also get it online for a small fee, and then it comes to you instantaneously. But I do think it's really important to have a look at this information every year. Particularly, we want to make sure that our contact information is correct, our employment information is reported on there. We want to make sure that that is correct. And we want to make sure as well that you can see who has inquired on your credit report. So if you've applied for new credit, you can see those inquiries that have happened on your report, as well as if there has been any perhaps legal action that is commenced against somebody. All of that is reported on your report. So you definitely want to make sure that that is all correct. And as well, like you say, getting those errors fixed is absolutely important. And that is possible going directly to those credit bureaus, Equifax and TransUnion, to make sure that they correct those errors for us. So all of that is really important. Now, what if, Tatiana, someone has a positive credit report? Can they take advantage of that?
Absolutely. I've worked with primarily people who start businesses, as I advise them and support them. And what I often say is bootstrap it as much as you can in the beginning, but also build a safety net. So, there's a bunch of coaches that say, oh, if you want to start something, just go all in, quit your job. And I'm a big opponent to that, because I think it's just plain stupid and irresponsible to do something like that. And typically, if you have a good credit borrowing capacity, maybe you're buying a home, or maybe you're starting a business or something where you need some cushion to make sure that, you can pay for that deposit on the rent, or you can make the first 6 months happen. And then you are confident, 100% confident that after 6 months, you're going to be cash positive. Things like that. That's really an amazing opportunity for everybody who has good credit score. And those who don't, it just often seems like it's a rat race that they can't get out of. And so there's a flip side to that, of course, as well.
Yes, and you mentioned earlier too that actually maxing out your credit can have a negative effect on your credit rating, and that's true here in Canada as well. And so we really have to be careful about how much credit we are actually utilizing, while also paying attention to how much we have access to. And so all of that information on our credit reports is really critical. And so we talked a little bit at the start of the show that spring can be a time for new beginnings, and it's also a time to reassess our financial goals. So what should our viewers be thinking about when we consider our financial goals?
I think spring is a great time to do that because we are kind of nearing summer, and we all like to take some time off during the summer to enjoy the good weather. And so setting financial goals is really important, and it goes back to knowing kind of where you are today. How much money is coming in, how much is going out, and what's left, if anything. And so having a plan of setting some money aside, maybe for that trip that you wanted to take in August or whatever. And most people, I guess, travel in August, which is why I picked it. But setting some money aside because, it's nice. And this is very common, of course, among people in the US, and I'm sure it's the same in Canada, where oftentimes people go on vacation on credit, or let's say do Christmas shopping on credit. And then it's sweet when you do it, right? The dopamine influx. But at the same time, that if you have to pay that off in the next 6 to 12 months, it's not as sweet anymore. And then oftentimes it's kind of snowballs into this big thing that you just feel that you can't even pay off. And so setting those goals, being specific, okay, maybe this year we'll skip the vacation because, it's a little bit of a recession. We're in this financial state where we're maybe barely making ends meet. But also financial goals have to do with kind of looking forward. A lot of us, and I think most of people in the US live from paycheck to paycheck, which means that there is no long-term plan. And that long-term plan is important because retirement comes kind of almost unexpected for some. And when we are in our early 20s or even 30s, we don't think about that as much. And that's kind of one of the reasons that diets don't work, right? Because you don't see this immediate effect. Same thing with kind of retirement. But when you ask someone, how are you going to live when you retire? Like, when do you plan to retire? That's question number one. And that's a good question to ask yourself to get started. And how much money do you need every year to live, to enjoy what you do? What are you going to do? Are you going to travel? Are you going to write books? Are you going to speak on stages? What is it? What's the long-term plan? And it doesn't have to be extremely specific, even though most finance coaches and just coaches in general want you to set SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. But in this case, I think because when we set a plan, sometimes things happen that kind of give us something better. Oftentimes it happens that we get something better than what we planned, but having some sort of an idea of a goal of what are you going to do, how are you going to spend money, where are you going to go, how are you going to enjoy life, as opposed to just relying on the government pension or whatever it is. What is it going to look like is a really good wake-up call for many, even in their 20s and 30s, who can say, oh, wow, I need to think about it now. I really do. Because it's a lot easier to set aside some money every year when you're in your 20s than when you're in your 50s, when you have about 10, 15 years to work. And then what next? So I think kind of starting with the end in mind is really important when setting your financial goals.
Yes, I agree with you. Having that look in that crystal ball kind of area to say, okay, where do I want to be at this point in my life, and what do I need to be able to be successful at that point? So I think you're absolutely right. You sort of have to work backwards when it comes to setting these goals. And so as we're talking about these new beginnings in springtime, there's no doubt that many of our viewers out there might be considering launching a side project, and maybe they have a hobby that they want to turn into some additional income. What advice do you have for our viewers who might be interested in starting their own business?
I say do it. I say go in, don't go all in, meaning don't say no to a well-paying job. But side hustles, actually, Adam Grant, a researcher and psychologist, organizational psychologist at UPenn, just recently published a couple of months ago that he has data proving that employers should encourage entrepreneurship, should encourage side hustles. So if you work for somebody else, you could still start something if it's obviously allowed, because sometimes for government jobs, it may not be allowed. And so starting a business is good because you learn all of the skills, you get additional income, you become really good at time management, you become really good at task management too. And so kind of building those skills, but also kind of enjoying the side hustle. And Adam Grant's research shows that people are happier because they're more productive, and employers are happier because employees are more productive, right? So it's a win-win for everyone. If you have something you enjoy doing, or if you're really good at something, why not monetize it? Why not bring in more income so that you have that budget for that vacation, or you can set aside money for retirement, or maybe for something very special for yourself or your family? I think that's a really good idea to do that. And the only thing that I can say is always do it smart.
I like the thought of the personal development that goes along with starting your own business. And I found that personally as well, where you maybe are researching a skill that you have never done before, which is now going to help you in your current profession. So I think there's a lot of cross value there when it comes to starting your own business while at the same time continuing with maybe your full-time career. So I think that's really good. Well, we're almost out of time. Do you have any final advice for our viewers about spring cleaning their finances?
I think a really big push from me is what you'll get, and that's start a side hustle. It will bring you more money. It will make you happier. There's data that shows that proves that. Be aware of where you are now and set goals for the future, short-term and long-term goals, financial goals, and be specific. Having, I don't know, $60,000 a year when you retire is a specific goal. It's something that can be measured, but and understand that you're going to commit to that goal and understand how you're going to get there. That's really a big push from me on, the spring cleaning your finances, and it's going to put you in a much better place than you are today.
And quickly, how can people connect with you online, listen to your podcast, and pick up the book?
You can order the book on Amazon and go to my website, TatianaTsoir.com, or Instagram, same name.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here and giving your great advice. And I also want to thank you, our viewers, for watching. Until next time, I'm Shannon Jackson.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
It was my daughter's birthday. She was blowing out the candles on her cake when we heard coming from the TV.